28th meeting of the Hadley Public Schools. Do I hear a motion to call the meeting to order?
So moved.
Thank you, Christine.
Seconded.
Thank you, Ethan. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All right. I believe Paul is not able to make it. Something came up at work and he sends his regrets. We will proceed without him. And we're welcoming our student rep, Aisha. Welcome. It's great to have you here. Let's dive right in. First, we are going to check in with Annie about any adjustments to the agenda. Annie.
Yes, well, we have a few. One is that our student representative, Aisha, will lead us off this evening. So we've changed the order and she'll do her report first after public comment under presentation and discussion. We have added to the agenda just some information about an East Hampton Savings Bank program for schools. Tara will be updating the entire committee on the status of Unit A negotiations in open session, and we do not need
to meet in closed session.
Correct.
Great.
Thank
And you have such a beautifully wonderful tonal variation that when you go low, sometimes you cut out in the audio. So just wanted to repeat that to make sure we caught.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. All right. Next, we'll invite public comment. If there are any members of the public that would like to make comment, please feel free to raise your digital hand. There don't seem to be a lot of members of the public on this call, but let's give it a second and see if anyone would like to speak. Even a school committee member, as a member of the public, should feel free to say something. All right, seeing none. Let's proceed with the presentation and discussion items. First is item A, website redesign. Annie, take us through it, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, because the updated one you won't be seeing right now. Can we start with Aisha and then we'll move on to that?
Oh, yes, of course. Aisha,
If you refresh, you should see the update.
Terrific.
Anybody who's linked onto the agenda should see the update.
Yep, there it is. All right, first up is item A, student representative update. Aisha, tell us what you've got for us, as well as word of any upcoming events.
And I will share my screen for you, Aisha. Would that be helpful?
Thank you.
Of course. I'll do that right now. There we go. Good.
So hey everyone. I'm very excited to be at this school committee meeting. I hope your spring break was really good. And I had a relaxing break. With wrapping up my senior year, I'll be graduating next month. Just kind of prepping for graduation, finishing some of my virtual high school work for my AP Music Theory class, and getting to spend some time helping out with my family's business. And, spending time with them was a really nice time.
Okay. All right.
So to move on to the report, I would first like to talk about the Panama Service Learning Field Trip that took place over break, and it's actually still taking place. They will be returning very soon. I was able to get two testimonials, one from Senora, Miss Fitzgibbons, and one from a student on the Panama trip. And I'm really grateful to receive these testimonials as they are still traveling. So according to Ms. Fitzgibbons, the trip's leader and facilitator, it was a transformative experience for students in grades 8 through 12 engaged in work such as continuing a construction project to provide running water to a community school and refreshing the classroom, teaching lessons about environmental conservation in Spanish, and participating in fun activities with the children, like making friendship bracelets and playing soccer. The contributions, including donations of clothing from Hopkins students and school supplies from the Hadley Elementary Student Council, were greatly appreciated. And overall, she is very grateful for all of the Hadley Public Schools and the student support and help in making the trip a wonderful experience and success. Hoping to continue service learning trips like this one to give more students opportunities to contribute to the communities around them. I've provided her full testimonial below if anyone would like to continue reading on. For now, I will move on to the student testimonial. So to uncover more about the impact of service learning opportunities on students, from a student's perspective, I've also collected the testimonial of a Hopkins student currently on the Panama trip. Their testimonial is as follows. Service learning opportunities such as our recent trip to Panama are very important experiences for students. On these trips, students participate in meaningful and impactful projects to empower communities in need. Students are able to be immersed in different culture and learn and participate in many cultural activities. These opportunities are also incredible for language learning, as there are so many opportunities to talk with native Spanish speakers, and overall these trips are extremely unique and meaningful to all of those who participate. Moving on to the Athletic Equestrian League qualification acknowledgements, 6th graders Audra Phil and Layla Relin qualified for the national finals of the Athletic Equestrian League. Students had to be in the top 15 in Massachusetts to qualify. And they will be competing at the Nationals on May 11th. So congratulations to Audra and Layla. Now moving on to the science fair acknowledgements, I would like to also acknowledge and recognize Sanam Chaudhry, who is a junior who placed 3rd at the high school regional Region 1 Science Fair, as well as 7th graders Darnell Clayton and 8th grader Mason Barberry, who placed 3rd at the middle school Regional 1 Science Fair. So congratulations to Saram, Darnell, and Mason. I would also like to acknowledge this year's drama club performance, Baskerville, a Sherlock Holmes mystery, featuring Emerson Thorpe and Jackson Campbell as Sherlock Holmes and the Watson duo, and it was a wonderful success. The drama club is eager to see their program grow, and next month I will provide more information on what they would like to see. Lastly, for any future events, there is the Hopkins Academy Spring Concert May 15th and Hopkins Academy graduation on May 30th.
Terrific. Thank you, Aisha. What a lovely update. It sounds like there's a lot happening and a lot of great opportunities for students. Thank you so much for your update. Any questions or comments for Aisha? All right. Thank you again, and look forward to your participation in this meeting.
Thanks, Aisha.
All right, we're
Thank
going to move. We're going to move next to the website redesign project.
Yes, just a brief update for everyone. Steve Bigda, I'm very grateful to him. He is working on our website redesign. He is working with the Collaborative for Educational Services. I wanted to let the school committee know that Steve may send you an email from time to time asking, do you have any opinions or thoughts on X, Y, or Z? Please remember, school committee, to not reply all when he does that. If he's looking for your input or your thoughts on something, just respond to him individually. And we're eager to get our website kind of more up to date. CES does a great job with websites for schools. So we anticipate that this will be launched in the summer.
Terrific, Annie. I do have a quick question about that. I know when we had our current website launched, we did it in coordination with the town, and we did it with a software that sort of tied us all together. Are we going to continue down that path and use that infrastructure, or are we branching out on our own?
So we are the CES, working with CES will be a little bit separate, but we'll still be able to connect to the town. I know that Steve has that as a priority. So we're not in any way creating a situation that creates problems on the town side. We just want certainly our website to be a bit more user-friendly and look like we see some other school districts.
Yeah, I don't see any issue with going in either direction. I'm not even sure what the benefits are to being connected to that town system, but I'm glad to find out that that we're on it. So looking forward to more details as they come. All right, moving next to item C, field trip squads abroad. We're talking about a trip to Guatemala that would be 2 years from now for grades 8 through 12. Annie, can you take us through that?
Yes, so you see on the agenda, I've linked actually the presentation directly from 2023. This is to give you an idea. This is not the exact same itinerary. That's the last time students were in Guatemala was in 2023, just to remind you of the kinds of activities that they did. As it gets closer, Senora would bring a kind of, here's the actual itinerary, just wanting to serve as a reminder, the kinds of activities that they do when they're in Guatemala, similar to the trip that the students that Aisha just spoke about, the students who are currently in Panama. Actually, Senora emailed me today. They were at the airport this evening, so they're heading back. But the reason that Senora has asked me to present this to you is so that they can start fundraising now. There are families who have said that the more time you give me, the better. Just give me lots of runway to start saving for these trips. So that's why Senora has asked the school committee to provide their approval now so they can spend the next 2 years fundraising for the families and students who want to participate in this.
Great. Thank you for that. Any questions or comments on this field trip? Okay, I have one, and that is, Annie, what happens if, say, a year and a half from now, the international situation, given the, current uncertainties around travel, what happens if things change? How would you suggest we proceed as a school committee in ensuring our students are safe? Does it come back to us? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so I did ask Eric Winter, the individual who runs Squads Abroad. I just confirmed with him again. And just to remind the school committee and the public, before we started working with this company, Senora and I went on our own down to Honduras to see one of their projects. Just to remind people, while we were there, we had law enforcement escort everywhere we went. We had a medical doctor with us. Squads Abroad went above and beyond. So what they do is they closely monitor any travel advisories on the State Department website. What's common in countries in Central America is that an entire country doesn't get a level necessarily, but there may be, well, they do on the State Department website, there may be areas that people are advised not to visit. These trips never go to any area that the State Department advises against visiting. If conditions change, then, and I think this happened in one of these trips, I actually think Guatemala, the 23 trip might have initially have been Honduras, and we switched it to Guatemala. So they're constantly monitoring the situation on the ground. We were monitoring Panama to see if things changed drastically there.
Right.
So they are in a position to change locations if that's required. They pay close attention to State Department travel advisories, any global health warnings, and they'll pivot if necessary. And I do think they did pivot to the 23 Guatemala trip. I don't think that was the original itinerary.
Very good. All right. Well, seeing no other questions, do I hear a motion to approve the Guatemala trip for 2027?
So moved.
All right. Is there a second?
Get it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Wonderful. Motion passes. Thank you. All right. We're moving next to acceptance of a donation of a piano. Annie, tell us about.
Yes, Amherst College has graciously offered Mr. Fazio a Steinway Model B piano. The current piano that we have is beyond repair at the high school, so this could not be better timing. We're very, very grateful. Per school committee policy, we need school committee approval to accept the donation. We would also be looking to dispose of the current piano. It is, as I've stated, and Mr. Fazio stated, it is beyond repair. Chris, Mr. Desjardins, is talking to different companies about whether or not they would be interested in the cast iron or any recyclable pieces of the piano as we look to dispose of that. But both the acceptance of the donation and the disposition of our existing asset would require school committee.
All right. Very good. Well, first of all, thank you to Amherst College for donating a Steinway piano, and just in time, it appears. So thank you so much. do I hear a motion to accept the piano from Amherst College and for disposition of the old piano?
So moved.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Tara. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can you hear me okay?
Terrific. We're moving on to item E, which is ESB program for schools. Annie, tell us about that.
Yes, so just if the public or if folks here click on it, you will see that East Hampton Savings Bank has a program that supports schools in our area, Hadley Public Schools, as well as other school districts. So anyone who opens a new checking account at East Hampton Savings Bank, for every account that customers open, East Hampton Savings Bank makes a donation to participating local schools, school systems, or educational foundations of the customer's choice. So thanks East Hampton Savings Bank for supporting schools, and I just wanted to bring it to the attention of the community.
Wow, great, wonderful, thank you. And do we need to vote on that? We don't need to
No,
vote.
you don't. That was just wanted to bring it to your attention.
Terrific, thank you. All right, we're going to move next to food services, item F. And Chris, are you there?
I am here, yes. So we had an audit in the food services department. These usually happen every 3 years. We haven't actually had one for 7 because they didn't do them during COVID, and then they kind of got a backlog of them. But they go through everything in these audits, you know, the financials, the operations of the department. We did have a few very minor findings. A couple of items we needed to increase the amount that we charged adults for their meals, you know, to bring it up to the minimum amount that that is required. We needed to publish an ad in the newspaper stating that all lunches are free for students. So, you know, again, we took care of that. If students have an unpaid balance, we need to charge that to the district. And we had about $60 from last year that was not charged to the district, so we need to take care of that. We used to reconcile the books quarterly. They want us to do it monthly, so we can do that. The meal charge policy was outdated because basically it was from when meals were not free. And so, you know, it basically said you got a cheese sandwich, items like that, if you had a balance over a certain amount. Well, obviously that doesn't matter now because the meals are free. And the last item was that they check the amount of food that the students are served, and you have to have so many servings of every kind. They found 1 week in November that the number of legumes that were served were short by 1/4 of a cup in that particular week. And so they held back payment on a certain number of meals. And so that will come out of our next payment that we receive for our lunches from the state. It was $693 that they found. So, which is not unlike the last audit where they found literally we were short 1 slice of pepperoni per pizza from Domino's. That was the finding last time. So they're very nitpicky about these things, but really these are all minor, you know, minor findings. Certainly, we've taken care of all of them, so you know we're all set with it. But I just wanted to report to you the findings that they got during the audit.
They are serious about their legumes.
They certainly were.
Yeah, I have a question about whether anyone, foreshadowed whether the federal government would be continuing to pay for school lunches, or whether there's talk of that changing. Anything from your interactions with these folks?
Yeah, it's really kind of up in the air right now as to what's going to happen with that. Nobody seems to know, as you can understand. Nobody really knows what's going to happen next week, never mind next year. But
Good point.
that being said, I mean, everybody's hopeful that it still continues because certainly in Massachusetts, they do see the value of that. So it really just comes down to budgets at this point in time, but nobody could determine at this point in time. They were here in March, so, nobody could determine at that point in time, and we haven't heard anything since.
Well, we'll continue to keep our fingers crossed. Thank you. No action required here, just an FYI, right? Thank you,
Correct.
Chris. Appreciate that. All right, we're going to move next to the superintendent updates, which I so love receiving. Annie, do you want to take us through some of the highlights?
Yes, so big highlight I was able to present, and I see I need to add the link to the finance committee for the town of Hadley. I appreciate them having me there to go through the budget. And at that meeting, Mr. Parmar, Shardul Parmar, who's on the finance committee, asked about being the liaison between the school committee and the finance committee. So I just looked at the invite and I think I messed up and neglected to invite him this evening when I'm looking at the participants. So I will make sure that I send my apologies and regrets and make sure he gets the invitation for May. But very excited that FinCom would like to have a liaison to the school committee. And also, which will be an update that you'll receive next week, although it happened this past Friday over break. I went to the Council on Aging and had informal presentation, schools, what's in it for me? This is what every voter should ask, and certainly folks who maybe their priorities have shifted a bit. It was a great conversation. They were so warm and receptive, and I look forward to returning and being available to people to ask questions about the school department, our programs, our policies, and our budget as often as they would like.
Terrific. Well, I'll take the lead in giving our superintendent, Annie McKinsey, a huge shout out for being selected by MASS, the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents, for the MASS President's Award. And it's presented to a superintendent annually to recognize outstanding service to public education. MASS awards are selected for their dedication to improving the quality of education for all students, especially those from underserved populations. And we know and love Annie for all the work that she does in this regard. And so it should come as no surprise that the state is recognizing her for leadership in this arena. I imagine, I can only imagine if I were in any forum or conference. In fact, I've been at school-related conferences like MASC, and I've just seen every contribution that Annie offers, every question so strategic and really getting at the key issues. Just such a dynamo that we are so lucky to have. I'm just really proud of you, Annie, for securing this great honor for yourself as well as for Hadley. So thank you so much and congratulations.
Thank you. That's very, very kind. I'm grateful to be here, grateful to work here. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Miss Anjum. That means the world.
So cool. All right. We're going to move next to the donor recognition for the Hopkins Academy athletic fields. Chris, we've seen multiple iterations of this, so we're excited to see where you're at with it now.
Well, I did attach to the agenda basically updated text for the sign. Basically listing the donors on one side, the championship teams that we've had on another side, and a brief history of Hopkins Academy. Paul had weighed in with a couple of suggestions. I went ahead and made those changes to the version that you have attached to the agenda. The one item that I'm really struggling with, and I guess I could put the word out there using this method, is he requested that we mention when Hopkins switched from a private school to a public high school. I can't find that anywhere. I just can't. And so
yeah, you know what I was thinking, Chris, that we should, that the Historical Society or Chris Pitt.
I may be able to help you with that. No, I have a couple of books.
There's a book.
Yeah.
There's a book.
A couple of books.
Yeah.
So let me get back to you on that.
I know that.
And the reason I think some people, just for the public, like by private, because Hopkins Academy predated even a United States predated a Commonwealth, it predated Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. So pretty much by definition, all education was private.
Right.
Until such time when our government said it isn't. So yes, that would be, I know what book you're talking about too, but I have no idea where it is.
I have a feeling I know where it is, but Chris, if you're able to locate it, I also know the person on the trustees who gave me the book, so I could always track that person down. And but yes, the answer is known, and it's
Yes.
it's collectively in our community. And so let's start with Chris Pip. And Chris, if you wouldn't mind getting back to Chris Desjardins, and Chris Desjardins, if you don't find an answer in the next, week or so, come find me.
Okay. I do have a copy of, and maybe there's more than one book. I have a copy of the book. It was basically about the Hopkins Fund from 1650-ish to 1890 or something like that. And I looked through the book and we kind of hinted, there were several attempts to, it seemed, to make it a public high school way back in the 1860s. And it never really nailed it down, at least as far as I could see, that it carried through and made it a public high school. So it could have been around that time, or, it could be further along. But I really spent about a half an hour looking through the book to find it. So maybe somebody else's eyes might see it. I might have passed right by it or something.
All right.
So yeah, any help would be appreciated.
Sure.
The last two
I was just
tabs
gonna
in
add-
the.
I was just gonna add that there's also the you're from Hadley when Facebook group. And I think Christine, are you a member of that? There are a lot of like old timers and people with a lot of old photos they're posting about, way back when. Someone's got to know.
I might follow that myself. I'll check it out and see if I can
Yeah.
put something on there.
Okay, yeah, because if you can, I can.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Great, thank you.
The final couple of tabs, one was for the baseball scoreboard and one was for the softball scoreboard. We did receive a large donation from someone who basically wanted to cover the cost of the scoreboard and have the scoreboard in memory of a relative. We put that on the baseball scoreboard. And then the softball scoreboard has the 3 very large donors included on that. And I just really wanted to run that by you because the donation we received recently, they really wanted that scoreboard to be named, or I guess in memory of that person, which kind of meant moving the large donors over to another scoreboard. I didn't want to do that without your approval, obviously. So I didn't know how you felt about that.
I'm in favor. He was a close friend.
Yeah, sorry for your loss, Christine. Appreciate that. I wonder, yeah, I'm always looking for win-win situations. I know the trustees have given generously, CPA has definitely, as well as Steve Lewis Subaru. Is there, Chris, have you imagined a win-win solution that could potentially honor this individual while also appreciating the large and generous donors and maybe having them on both scoreboards? I know that they both reach different communities. I know I've never stepped foot on the softball scoreboard, so I personally would never ever see the 3, donors, because I never head out that way. But have you thought about a win-win?
Yeah, I mean, originally what we had was 2 donors on one scoreboard and 2 on the other. But then we received the text that this last donation wanted on the scoreboard. And I enlisted Fred Siagalo because he knows them. And he was kind of the go-between. And, he spoke with them as well. And we revised it a little bit. But it was tough because it says in memory of, you know, scoreboard in memory of, and we didn't want to have something like scoreboard in memory of this person. Oh, and by the way, they gave money too. You know what I mean? So I didn't want to have it two on the same scoreboard. It's a tough thing to, you know, to get that win-win, certainly.
Yeah,
That's honestly why I'm kind of putting it out for, you know, for your thoughts on it. No signs have been made or anything, so we can certainly go in any direction. It's tricky.
that is a tricky thing.
Well, Mayor, can I ask the question? Can
Yeah,
you I'm sorry, maybe I didn't hear, like, understanding that. Can you talk me through your win-win situation again? Just what you're envisioning?
I'm not. I'm asking
Okay.
for suggestions from this community for a win-win that would honor the three donors as well as the recognition in the venues, in both venues, I guess, or a singular venue so that people could see both, but this is the first I'm hearing of it, so it's my initial reaction, and so I'm speaking out loud, and I probably just need to think about it some more.
Is
And
there, are we, and again, I guess, same as you speaking on, are we feeling like doing this thing like this where one says scoreboard in memory of and one recognizes our bigger donors is not equitable, or are we feeling like one scoreboard outshines? And I guess I'm just trying to better understand what you're thinking.
I'm in a situation where I have two baseball players and no softball players as a parent. So I've only ever spent time on the baseball fields. I've not done an analysis of how many, like what the crowd size is. I only know my point of view, which is it appears that the baseball field gets a lot of visitors, a lot of traffic. I know a lot of neighbors that happen to follow what my boys are doing in baseball, not because they're my boys, but because they follow baseball. Are they doing the same with softball? I'm not sure. So like, I know people come, we're eh, alternatively, on the basketball side of things, we have a lot more people that come to the boys' basketball games than they do the girls. And so you have like the girls' banner going up during the boys' basketball game because they're going to get a greater recognition, greater visibility, greater eyeballs. It's not necessarily fair, but it is what it is. And so it's in that spirit I'm thinking about I'm thinking out loud.
I have a thought. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Um, so, you know, I had started talking about this too when we had first started talking about the playground, and we haven't done any donor recognition as we're still waiting on a little bit of funding to come in for that. And so that's kind of been put on hold at the moment, although not forgotten. And so, and I know that the project size is obviously much different. Um, but with the same respect, I wonder if we need to kind of revisit what policy or kind of like guidelines that we have in place in regards to monetary donations and getting this type of recognition or in memory of, because again, I'm not opposed to it. I'm in favor of recognizing all of our donors, but I feel like maybe it needs to be a little bit more standardized on what people could expect for their donation, because I think right now it's kind of just up to, approval of the school and, recommendation from the school committee. But I just worry that maybe if we don't have something a little bit more, I don't know, it doesn't have to be like black and white, but a little bit more guidelines on what would constitute somebody getting a recognition. If that's strictly monetary, if there's other criteria, I don't know.
Right.
I'm just thinking about the future and well, so and so got their name on that and I donated X amount. Why isn't my, you know, plaque on this bench or whatever. And I want to just be able to like recognize that we want to be able to represent and recognize everybody as fairly and as transparently as possible, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah,
I know that's not a solution, but
I
it just
couldn't
thinking.
agree with you more, right? Like if we showed up to a school committee meeting and found out that there was another donation and that was for the naming of the fields, that just,
Right,
where does it end, right?
right.
That's, I agree with you, and it's one of the reasons why I'm raising the question. Is there something more scalable, where, like, I think, what's coming to mind for me are like the beautiful walkway, and I'm thinking of like the stars in Hollywood on the ground, right? If we had something that we could have, a more infinite number, then you could really recognize a bigger, a wider array of people. But I feel a little bit, I don't feel ready to decide one way or another. I kind of need to sleep on this. And, maybe the original proposal is a perfectly sound proposal. I'm just sharing my initial thoughts. And yeah.
Would it be helpful if Chris and I brought back that original, I think we'd said like benches, because I can't remember the original proposal, as well as we don't have any Hadley school committee policies around, I think, naming of facilities. I don't believe that we do, but I can check in with MASC because I think we already looked at those. That our policies didn't really speak directly to it, but I'm happy to ask Mass Association of School Committees if they have anything. Would that be helpful? Would either of those things be helpful?
I think it could be helpful, along with just maybe us all thinking about a more equitable and more scalable strategy for accepting donations and recognizing folks on, what is a very large set of fields, and so we have a lot of possibilities.
Is there a possibility of, I mean, I don't know how big this is, without seeing how it's gonna be laid out. But can we put special thanks to underneath?
Yeah.
Uh,
Maybe, and it goes on both. That's a
yeah,
potential
it would go
solution.
on both,
That is a win-win. Mhm.
I think, Christine, I may be getting lost in the iterations, but I feel like Chris Desjardins, wasn't that similar to one that we had talked about, that, to your point, you would not have in memory of necessarily, or if you did, to your point, Christine, you'd have to make a distinction then. So maybe it is looking back at that.
I think what
original and
Christine might be
tweaking it.
suggesting is in memory of, and then the
Right.
the
and then
person,
special thanks.
then special thanks to, and then the three.
Right.
And then having that mirrored on both
Mhm.
scoreboards. Yeah, I haven't seen
That
that.
would work too,
iteration.
yeah.
Mhm.
Right.
I also, Annie, I would like to know if MASC has any bit of guidance or knowing what any other schools do, what other districts do around this, just because I would anticipate when you start, and again, I'm all for recognizing people for their donations, but just making sure that we're really transparent on why somebody gets something and then the other doesn't get X, Y, and Z. Just full transparency.
Right. And also, there have been so many amazing people who have contributed to the community and to the schools. And if they had known that they could have honored their loved one in this way, would they have? Right.
Right.
So, like, is someone going to hear this recording and be like, well, what about my, loved one who we all, cherish as well? So,
So, I mean, I have to say, just looking at the amount of awards we give at graduation that are in memory of people,
right.
we've always had
A
ways,
vehicle,
you know, a vehicle, a way to
honor,
memorialize people.
right? Yeah,
So I think that, and that does separate us from many, many other districts.
right.
Um,
That's a good point.
but I think, you know, didn't we look at? I could have sworn we did look at this when we were talking about the playground. And I remember searching for policies and not being able to really find any concrete policies, but I'd be happy to look.
And, you know, if you wouldn't mind, as you're looking, think about what would be in such a policy. Like
Right.
maybe we forge our own very simple policy of if it's this kind of honoring, it's you know, it appears in this venue, or I don't know, but we do come across this enough that it could be helpful to give ourselves some guidance, and then, you know, try to stay with that guidance and be able to share it broadly so that the community, you know, is understands what our guidelines are.
And I guess I think that's kind of where I was going with it. Humera is trying to answer that question, but I think having a sense of what the threshold is, whether, you know, financially or purposefully, in memoriam, whatever it may be, but like creating guidelines around that, because if it is our responsibility to approve these things, ultimately, we have to, I think, have a set of policies or a policy or reasons why we're doing it. And I kind of what you said about like another family might say, well, I have somebody that I'd like to have something done in memory of, and I have some money, and so can I do that? And like there's this impetus to say like, yes, like, well, obviously we want to be able to raise money for the right reasons and for this community, but just being conscious of like having some type of threshold or policy, whatever it may be, that kind of sets the tone for how this is done.
Yeah.
And we had to do that, I say we, but when we did fundraising for the playground, we kind of laid out in the fundraising committee what different levels would be recognized and what they would be given. And we did that because we had a lot of people wanting that recognition, right? And there was an opportunity for the playground to be covered in plaques. And I'm not saying that it's like a bad thing, but I think finding a way to strategize and making it more uniform. Like I like the idea of being able to put like a plaque on the walkway or something, you know, similar to how we have the bell out front where you can buy a brick, and maybe a certain amount gets something a little bit bigger, or if you spend a certain amount you have a shared, you know, plaque versus your own plaque, or
Right.
something that's just very clear and transparent. Because I know that we've had like, you know, like Steve Lowe Subaru, who donated a lot, and we said, no, unfortunately, we're not going to put your name on something. And we had a bank that wanted to put a plaque on the slide that this slide was donated from, and we declined that. We have the Mothers Club, who's still looking, and shame on me, I've kind of not gotten back to them recently enough, that they're looking to donate money towards a bench, and they would like to have the donation like a plaque on that bench. So I think it just, you know, I don't want to set us up for not having a consistent
That makes
process.
completely sense.
Right.
That makes complete sense. It really
Right,
does.
and ultimately disappointing someone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I want to
always-
honor loved ones too, right? Like I
right.
feel like we need to find a way, but I feel like we just need to have a really, as best as we can, clear, transparent way of how we're deciding what we're deciding.
Right. And just while I'm thinking about it, as you were speaking, I was thinking bench too. At Smith College, there's a number of beautiful benches that go along their walkways by the botanical, you know, location, and so, and we have this incredible walkway. You know, benches are a little bit more scalable, just like the, you know, sort of plaques on the ground kind of thing. So I urge us to think more scalably in that sense, and also with an eye towards a policy, because this will come up again. You know, just in the last few years,
Well,
we've got these
Right,
two
it's
instances,
constant
right?
comes up again.
This is gonna come up again. So I would love not to have these one-off discussions.
Mhm.
And then I also don't want an individual family to feel like, feel bad that we're, putting a kibosh on an idea. So it would be really nice to have some clarity and think again, with an eye towards scalability, and equitability, like some equitable strategy.
So what I did to do, just so you folks know, if you refresh, and for the public, this would be something you wouldn't see in the posted agenda because it'll be shaded as something we didn't anticipate, but I will bring it back again. Everybody can find this, FF policy on naming facilities. So we have reviewed it before, we can bring it back. I think the issue last time was that it didn't feel like it had specific enough criteria. Perhaps a policy doesn't do that. There needs to be a set of corresponding procedures, maybe that are a little more, this is how we make this decision. But I just wanted the school committee to know the policy that you have that references naming in any way is linked now to this current agenda. We'll bring it back again next month. I'll say again, you have seen it before, but I think what you're looking for is more consistent procedures.
Yeah, I think
yeah.
maybe not. Maybe, I mean, I see what you're sharing, and thank you so much for bringing this to our attention. It's the perfect policy. Well, I can't. It seems to be most applicable to instances where we're naming one name for a thing. And that's different from recognizing a number of people for perhaps the same thing. So it's not quite naming of facilities, it's more a recognition policy.
Yeah, recognition, okay.
Right, recognition of capital infrastructure is pretty specific, but that is in essence what we're doing. A recognition of assets and capital infrastructure.
I did send something out to the superintendent's listserv, and I will, I will tell you what I get.
Great, thank you.
Oh,
But,
no,
we
putting in
might
policy
be
FF,
hard
right?
pressed. There are a few communities as generous as Hadley, where there are as many people who are give back and have so much pride in the school and are have as much investment in the history, and honor the legacy of Hadley. So it'll be hard to find one, I'm sure. And if we don't find one, then we should create one, a simple one. So I look forward to talking about this again, perhaps next month or when you're able to bring it back. Terrific, thank you. Chris, while we have you, we're up to talk about the business manager reports.
Okay, so as usual, I have 3 reports for you. The first is basically the general fund report, showing the budget, where we stand, how much we've spent and how much we have left to spend. We're actually pretty right on target here. 76% spent through just last Friday, basically, is when I ran the report. So it's, we're in good shape with that. We still have some additional grant transfers, some of which I did today. Actually, they're not reflected on this report, but we moved some more funds that were kind of as a placeholder in the budget, moved them out into the grant. So that available balance is actually up a little bit from where we were on Friday. But again, not any concern at this point in time. We're looking good as far as that goes. As usual, some accounts are higher than projected, and fortunately they're offset with accounts that are lower than projected, which is typically how it works. So we're looking pretty good there. I don't know if anyone has any questions on the budget report.
No, it appears not.
Okay, we could move on to the grants report, which, as you can see, is getting to the point where I might have to have a page 2 because the text is certainly getting smaller. That's a great problem to have, I have to say. And again, we've made a lot of progress in spending these grants down. We still have, roughly about $569,000 of grant funds yet to use. So we will be, doing the transfers through the rest of the year for those grants. They've, with a lot of these grants, we just can't do the transfer knowing that we're going to spend the money, salaries is what I'm looking at. I can't do the transfer until the salary has actually been paid, even though we know it's going to be moved to the grant. So I'm kind of just waiting, and it takes a while to do, but obviously by the end of the year, we'll have all the salaries spent, so then I can do the final transfers at that point in time. Any questions on the grants at all?
I think we will have to move to a second page, Chris.
Okay.
And in light of the fact that a lot of federal dollars are, at risk in the future, it bodes well that we have many of these options, many of these additional ways to fund our efforts. So thank you, Annie, for continuing to apply, and thank you to your team for continuing to look for every opportunity to augment Hadley taxpayer funds.
Okay, and the last report we have is the revolving accounts report. The only one really that I feel the need to comment on is the lunch account, where we need the February and March revenues posted on the town side. They have not been posted yet. So that negative $16,000 will be offset by about $60,000 of revenues that were not posted yet. So once they are, I can make an adjustment to that particular account or that particular line, I should say, and report it with what's the true balance. I only report what's in the books because, that's kind of the picture at that point in time, even though I know there's more funds that have already come into the bank account. They just haven't been posted into the general ledger yet. So I wait for those, even though it's not my favorite thing to report a negative balance in an account when I know that it's really not. So
I'm curious, Chris, this is like, for instance, February revenue that we would get from the federal government to cover our expenses would come in, I'm presuming, in March.
Mhm.
And is it typically the case that it would take 2 months for that income that Hadley receives to put it into our books, the school books?
in this particular case, because I can look and track the payments, both February and March payments came in on April 9th. So, it's not really a delay on the town so much as a delay, I guess, by the state to actually send us all of this money, because they send us the federal and the state monies.
I see.
So yeah, it's just running behind on the state level.
Okay, great. Thank you. Interesting data point. Thank you. Any other questions on either of these three reports so far? All right, Chris, I think you have one more for us.
That's a good question. Let me.
I think it's the geothermal.
Yes. Okay. So it's not so much a report as, remember a couple of months ago, we discussed that the designers wanted an extra $25,000 because their, the project cost had increased by so much. And we kind of put it off in February. And then in March, we said, we should probably have Paul here to weigh in on it. And unfortunately, Paul's not here again. So, we have options. We can wait another month. We can tell them, yes, we'll do it. Or we can tell them, no, we won't. If we won't pay it, it was kind of hinted that, well, then, they'll give us the plans where we stand right now and walk away from it, which is, certainly not desirable either. But, we can certainly put this off another month if you'd prefer that Paul be here to weigh in.
And again, this is for the work that CHA has done in providing us the proposal.
Correct. Yeah. They, again, designers base their prices off of project costs. And, you know, if we remember, the project for the cost for this project was about $3.8 million from Eversource and then 9.5 from the designers. So, you know, it was a very large increase, which was certainly not nice to see. But hence, you know, as the costs get bigger, so do the complexities of the project, and therefore, you know, they actually wanted it to come from phase 2 of the design work, you know, and have it where, okay, you know, it was $250 for phase 1 and $100 for phase 2. Phase 2 would have been construction drawings and construction oversight by the designers. So they would come in, you know, make periodic visits and make sure that everything was being built according to their specs. And the downside, of course, to that is if this project did not get off the ground because of cost or any number of other factors, then we basically spent 25,000 of that phase 2 money, and there was no phase 2 project, you know, so.
Right. Chris, how do you feel about reaching out to Paul individually and getting his advice on that? And
Sure, yeah, I can do that.
I I don't know if we should also, I mean, he's managed so many projects from wind to, you know, other, you know, energy related projects that I really think his perspective here would be valuable.
Mhm.
And also we haven't had a chance to deliberate as a community, as a committee about the $9 million price tag and where we want to go from here, and the, you know, choosing an ESCO and just all of those pieces. So I kind of am reluctant to just, I don't want to say throw away $25,000, but throw away $25,000. 25K is 25K.
Right.
And I don't want to do that if we shouldn't. So would you mind connecting with Paul and then making a determination if you should come back with us and have a specific strategy in mind?
Absolutely, yeah, I can email him tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, no problem.
Any other thoughts or comments from from Tara, Ethan, or Chris or Aisha about this?
I agree with you. I'd really like Paul's perspective given his work history and experience.
I agree. I guess I'll ask the question. This isn't, you know, this is a couple of months now that we're kind of pushing it down the road. This is not gonna significantly impact the timing of the project, right?
Not really, because, you know, there's a lot of things in the air right now, and one of those is the MSBA portion or possible
Right.
portion of this project, which isn't going to start until January at least, so
Okay.
we've got some time.
Yeah,
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, that's kind of what I thought, but I just wanted to make sure.
great. Thank you. All right. We are going to move on. Thank you, Chris, for all of those reports. We're going to move next into action items. And first up is the approval of the payroll and expense warrants for April 2025. Do I hear a motion to approve those?
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second,
All right. And that came from Christine. All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Aye. All right. And next is the approval of the minutes for March 24th, 2025. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Terrific. Thank you. We already approved the field trip. We have a path forward for the approval of the designer fee increase. And we've already accepted the donation and disposed of the old piano. We're going to move next to item 6, school committee updates and general announcements. First is playground, CPAC, CES, and Unit A negotiations. Tara.
Okay, so really quickly, we are still waiting for a quote to come in on the poured in place rubber surfacing. Chris has been diligently reaching out. Hopefully we'll have an answer within the next week or so. And then we're working on getting quotes for the site prep work prior to the surfacing going in. And I hope that by the next school committee meeting, we hopefully have some more definitive information for you as the summer's coming up. CPAC, they have a meeting this Wednesday morning with Dr. McKenzie, who will be going over some of the pathways in the high school for the CPAC parents. And they all sound very excited. An email went out today. So they're eager to meet with you, Annie, and let their voices be heard and hear from you. CES, we didn't meet in April. We meet again the end of May. I just sent you all an email because I think I may have forgotten to give you an update back in March. And giving that on the fly might not be the best reflection as it's been a little bit of time in between. So I sent you just the summative report. And then after reading through that, let me know if you do have any questions. I will say that the meetings, they've been very fruitful conversations. I do feel like they've been productive. And I feel like as though just the past 2 meetings, there's been a lot more input and discussion of possible changes and how the board provides their input and where they can also offer more input and help. So I'm interested to see how the May meeting goes. That'll start the budget discussion. And Unit A negotiations. So those have wrapped up. Next month, we will meet in executive session to discuss and go over what we went over in negotiations and concluded on. So we'll vote next month on that.
Great. Thank you, Tara. Any questions for Tara?
Oh, I have one more thing. General
Yes.
announcement if I can right now instead of
Yes.
at the end.
Of course.
Your favorite time of year, folks. Ducking is starting tonight. Share it with your friends. If you want to get ducked or duck somebody, you can reach out to me or anybody else. Make sure you get those orders in. It supports the 6th grade class of 2031.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank
Wonderful
you.
time of year and such a great fundraiser. So much fun to duck others and also to be ducked. So thank you for that.
Thanks.
Okay, moving on to B, finance. I would like to share that annual town meeting is this Thursday, and the school budget hopefully will be passed at that time if we have quorum and if we are able to get enough folks out. So school committee colleagues, first and foremost, I'd love for you to be there. I'm sure we're going to get questions. It is, given the state and federal government's sort of financial challenges, I just think it would be good to have all hands on deck at the annual town meeting and make sure that we're available to answer questions. And please help spread the word so that we have enough people coming out and passing the school budget. Next item on the agenda is fields. Paul isn't here, but Chris, is there anything to share about the fields?
Not much, although I did take a walk through, I think on last Friday morning, actually, just to check how the grass was filling in. We have a 1-year warranty on the grass, and so I wanted to make sure we pinpointed any items that needed repairing. Even, all the trees that were planted, I wanted to make sure they were still alive after the winter. All the trees are, thank God, so that's good. But there were a few spots on the field that had some bare spots or dead grass. I took pictures of them all, and I'm putting together an email to the contractor now. So we'll get that out there.
Really, really glad that you're on top of that. Thank you so much. I also am curious about the rainy season and how drainage looks and if there's anything to report there.
We did actually, the contractor that is giving me a quote on the playground work, I also took him to the fields and showed him behind home plate where it was particularly wet. And it was fortunate it was following rain that we went there, so it was wet and he could see it. And I showed him we wanted 2 drains there. And then over by third base, it seems to be kind of holding water. So I asked him to put another drain there. These are underground drains that tie into the whole draining system. So I'm just waiting on a quote for that as well. But it actually has held up pretty well this year. The designers have said that once the grass started to actually grow, the grass, for lack of a better term, almost acts as a sponge with the water because it's drinking it constantly. And
Right.
so the more grass we have, the more water it can absorb. And it does seem to be much better than last year, but those spots were pretty bad. So we really want some just additional drainage there.
Terrific. I'm glad you're on top of that as well. Thank you. Okay, moving next to item D, capital. Christine.
Nothing to report.
All right, thank you. And item E, policy. Ethan.
Not too much. We did meet earlier today before the school committee meeting to look at our bullying policy, which I think we'll bring to you guys next month for the first read. And then we began section E, which is support services. And so we'll have more conversations around those, and we'll bring those to you in future months.
Terrific, thank you. Item F, general announcements. David Phil is not here, but I wonder if Annie, you've been engaged with the select board conversations lately. Is there anything to report about select board goings on that we should be aware of?
I would just say, I think you made the most important announcement, May 1st annual town meeting. Just super critical that people show up and vote to support the investments that they think are important.
Great, thank you for reinforcing that. All right, we will not be going into executive session. We will next month, but we will not tonight. Next meeting dates, we are revisiting because the fourth Monday of the month is Memorial Day, and we will not be meeting on Memorial Day. We are looking at the third Monday of the month, which puts us at May 19th. And so my proposal is that we meet on Monday, the 19th at 5:30. Do I hear any objections to that? Any support
No.
for that?
That works.
Yeah,
Works.
Mhm.
terrific. All right, let's stick with that. And if there's policy meeting, then it would be beforehand and
Mhm.
all the rest. So thank you. While we're on the topic of Memorial Day, we should urge school committee colleagues to join in the parade. Let's see, I know that my son is graduating from college a few days preceding that, but I should be back in town. The parade should be on Saturday, the 17th, correct?
Yes.
Right. So I urge you all to march with us. It's a really fun thing to do together, and to throw out candy into the crowds and see happy, smiling children. I think it makes sense to march with the, I know there was some question and we tried it different ways, marching in front of the band with the schools versus marching with the elected officials. And I don't know, I find that I slow down the band quite a bit with my candy throwing, my terrible arm. But do you have a point of view, Christine? You being the person that marched with me, and Tara? Ethan, I think you might have missed the last one.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I ended up in the band.
Right. It's awkward.
One or two times because I was, saying hello to people and realized I was.
Slowing everything down.
Yeah,
Sure,
yeah.
the kids were super annoyed with us. Well, we can make a game day decision if you'd like, but think about it between now and then.
Okay.
All right, great. I think that's it. We've great meeting, coming in at just a little over an hour. Thank you all for making this meeting efficient. And we'll see you again next month.
On the 19th, and I'm sending that out right now. Agenda will come later, but just so it gets in your calendar.
Terrific. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Have a great month.
Alrighty.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you, Aisha. Bye-bye now.
Bye, Aisha.
Bye.